Have you ever felt like you're carrying around a lot of baggage in your life, things that weigh you down and hold you back from really living? Maybe you can't quite put your finger on it, but it's just a feeling of being stuck. Well, guess what? You're not alone. I remember a time when I was holding on to a dream that was no longer serving me. It was a dream I had clung to for years, but deep down I knew it was time to let go. It was scary, like stepping off a cliff into the unknown. But when I finally did let go, it was like a weight had been lifted. I felt free to explore new possibilities, to embrace new dreams that were more aligned with who I was becoming. That experience taught me a powerful lesson. Sometimes we need to let go of things, even things we once cherished, to create space for something new and beautiful to emerge. In this video, we're going to explore 10 things you can quietly remove from your life to lighten your load and step into a more authentic, joyful you. No need for grand pronouncements or dramatic exits, just a silent shedding of what no longer serves you. Think of it as a gentle decluttering of your life, making space for more peace, more joy, and more you. Ready to embark on this journey of letting go? Let's begin. 1. Fear of others' opinions. Okay, let's talk about something we've all dealt with at some point. The fear of what other people think. It's that pesky voice in the back of your head that whispers, "What will they think?" Every time you want to do something that feels a little daring, a little different, a little you. It's like you're constantly living under a microscope, worried about the judgments of an invisible audience. But here's the thing, most people are so caught up in their own lives, they barely have time to notice yours. This fear, my friend, is a cage you've built around yourself. It keeps you playing small, conforming to expectations that might not even resonate with your soul. It's like wearing a costume every day, hoping it will get you the likes and approval you think you need. But underneath that costume, the real you is yearning to break free. Think about it. How many times have you held back from expressing your true self, from pursuing your passions, because you were afraid of what others might say or think? How many dreams have been left to gather dust on the shelf of what-ifs because you were too worried about fitting in? It's a trap, a sneaky little thief that robs you of joy and authenticity. Now, let's get a little philosophical for a moment. The Stoics, those wise folks from ancient Greece and Rome, knew a thing or two about living a good life. They believed that we can't control what other people think or do, but we can control how we react to it. Epictetus, one of the big names in Stoicism, said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." So, if someone judges you for your choices, that's their problem, not yours. But how do you actually put this into practice? How do you break free from this fear of judgment and start living a life that feels truly yours? Well, it starts with small, deliberate acts of courage. It's about saying no when you want to, even if it disappoints someone. It's about wearing what makes you feel good, not what you think you should wear. It's about expressing your opinions and ideas, even if they go against the grain. Each time you choose to be yourself, regardless of the potential for judgment, you chip away at the bars of that self-made cage. You create space for your true self to breathe, to grow, to shine. It's like shedding an old skin that no longer fits, revealing the vibrant, authentic you underneath. Now, I know what you might be thinking. But what if people don't like the real me? Well, here's the secret. Not everyone has to like you. In fact, trying to please everyone is a recipe for exhaustion and disappointment. The truth is, the more authentic you are, the more you'll attract people who resonate with your true self. You'll build genuine connections based on mutual respect and understanding, not on pretending to be someone you're not. Think of it this way: your life is a canvas and you're the artist. You have the power to paint it with the colors of your soul, to create a masterpiece that reflects your unique essence. Don't let the fear of judgment hold you back from expressing your creativity, from sharing your gifts with the world. So, my friend, take a deep breath, silence that inner critic, and step into the world with confidence. Embrace your quirks, your passions, your individuality. The world is waiting for your unique contribution, and it's time to show up as your most authentic self. As the great philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." 2. Toxic relationships. We've all got 'em. Those people in our lives who, well, let's just say they take a lot more than they give. They might be friends, family members, colleagues, or even romantic partners. But whatever their role, their presence in your life leaves you feeling drained, exhausted, and maybe even a little bit icky. Think about it. Do you have someone in your life who constantly criticizes you, puts you down, or makes you feel bad about yourself? Maybe they're always the victim, sucking you into their drama and leaving you feeling emotionally drained. Or perhaps they're incredibly demanding, always expecting you to cater to their needs while disregarding yours. These are all classic signs of a toxic relationship. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but they're family, or they've been my friend forever. And I get it. It can be tough to distance yourself from people who have been in your life for a long time, even if they're not the best influence. But here's the thing. You deserve to be surrounded by people who lift you up, who inspire you, who make you feel good about yourself. You deserve relationships that are mutually supportive, respectful, and fulfilling. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle had a pretty cool idea about friendship. He believed that true friends should help each other become better versions of themselves. They should encourage your growth, challenge you to think differently, and support you in your pursuits. Does that sound like the kind of relationship you have with the people in your life? If not, it might be time to reevaluate those connections. Now, I'm not saying you need to cut everyone off completely. Sometimes, setting boundaries can be enough to create a healthier dynamic. But in some cases, distancing yourself might be the best thing you can do for your own well-being. Think of it this way. Your energy is precious. You only have a limited amount of it each day. Do you really want to spend it on people who leave you feeling depleted and discouraged? Or would you rather invest it in relationships that nourish your soul and inspire you to grow? Now, I know letting go of relationships can be tough, especially if they've been a part of your life for a long time. But trust me, it's worth it. When you free yourself from toxic connections, you create space for healthier, more fulfilling relationships to enter your life. So, how do you actually go about distancing yourself from these energy vampires? Well, it starts with recognizing the signs. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with certain people. Do you feel energized and uplifted, or do you feel drained and depleted? Once you've identified the toxic relationships in your life, it's time to set some boundaries. This could involve limiting your contact with them, saying no to their requests, or even having an honest conversation about how their behavior is affecting you. And if all else fails, it might be time to walk away. I know that sounds harsh, but sometimes it's the best thing you can do for yourself. Remember, you're not responsible for other people's happiness, and you don't have to sacrifice your own well-being to maintain a relationship that's no longer serving you. Letting go of toxic relationships can be a painful process, but it's also incredibly liberating. It's like taking off a pair of shoes that are too tight and finally being able to breathe. You'll be amazed at how much lighter and freer you feel when you're no longer carrying the weight of those unhealthy connections. So, take a deep breath, trust your gut, and start creating a life filled with relationships that nourish your soul and inspire you to be your best self. You deserve it. 3. Self-destructive habits. All right, let's talk about those sneaky little habits that creep into our lives and wreak havoc without us even realizing it. You know the ones I'm talking about, those seemingly harmless routines that over time chip away at our well-being, leaving us feeling drained, unfulfilled, or even downright miserable. We all have them, those little vices that we indulge in a little too often. Maybe it's mindlessly scrolling through social media for hours on end, binge-watching shows when you should be sleeping, or reaching for that extra slice of cake even though you're already full. Whatever your vice may be, these self-destructive habits can be like quicksand, slowly pulling you down into a cycle of negativity and self-sabotage. Now, I'm not here to preach or judge. We all have our weaknesses, and it's okay to indulge every now and then. But the key is to be mindful of these habits and to make sure they're not taking over your life. Think of it like this. You're the captain of your own ship, and these habits are like little leaks that can slowly sink your vessel if you're not careful. So, how do you identify these self-destructive habits? Well, it starts with paying attention to how you feel. Do you feel energized and fulfilled after engaging in a particular activity, or do you feel drained and depleted? Does it bring you closer to your goals, or does it pull you further away? For example, let's say you have a habit of staying up late watching TV. Sure, it might be relaxing in the moment, but how do you feel the next day? Are you tired, sluggish, and unable to focus? If so, that's a pretty good sign that this habit isn't serving you. Now let's get a little philosophical for a moment. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. He encouraged people to question their beliefs, their habits, and their motivations. So, take a moment to reflect on your own life. What are some of the habits that might be holding you back? Maybe you're constantly comparing yourself to others on social media, leaving you feeling inadequate and insecure. Or perhaps you're a chronic procrastinator, putting off important tasks until the last minute and then scrambling to catch up. These habits might seem harmless on the surface, but they can have a significant impact on your mental health, your productivity, and your overall well-being. So, how do you break free from these self-destructive patterns? Well, it starts with awareness. Once you've identified the habits that are no longer serving you, it's time to start making some changes. And don't worry, you don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Small, incremental changes can make a big difference over time. For example, if you're trying to cut back on social media, start by setting limits on how much time you spend on it each day. You can also try replacing that time with something more productive or fulfilling, like reading a book, going for a walk, or spending time with loved ones. Another helpful strategy is to find an accountability partner. This could be a friend, family member, or therapist who can support you in your journey to break these habits. Having someone to check in with can help you stay motivated and on track. Remember, breaking bad habits is not easy. It takes time, effort, and a whole lot of self-compassion. But it's definitely possible, and the rewards are well worth it. When you free yourself from self-destructive patterns, you open up space for new, healthier habits to emerge. You create a life that is more aligned with your values, your goals, and your authentic self. So, take a deep breath, be kind to yourself, and start taking those small steps towards a better, healthier you. As the great philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Fourth, the need to control everything. Ever feel like you're a juggler, desperately trying to keep a dozen balls in the air at once? Work, relationships, finances, health, that never-ending to-do list. It's like you're constantly trying to micromanage every aspect of your life, convinced that if you just try hard enough, you can keep everything perfectly balanced and under control. But here's the thing, life is messy, it's unpredictable, it throws curveballs when you least expect them. And the harder you try to control every little detail, the more frustrated and exhausted you'll become. It's like trying to hold back the tide. You might be able to do it for a while, but eventually the waves will come crashing down. Now, I'm not saying you should just give up and let chaos reign. There's definitely a balance to be found between taking responsibility for your life and surrendering to the things you can't control. But the truth is, the more you try to grip the reins of life, the more likely you are to feel stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed. The Stoics, those wise philosophers we keep coming back to, had a lot to say about control. Epictetus, for example, believed that the key to happiness is focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your responses, and letting go of everything else. He famously said, "Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not." Think about it this way. You can't control the weather, the traffic, or what other people think or do. But you can control how you react to those things. You can choose to get angry and frustrated when things don't go your way, or you can choose to take a deep breath and adapt to the situation. Now, I know letting go of control can be scary. It's like stepping off a cliff and trusting that you'll land safely. But the truth is, when you surrender to the flow of life, you open yourself up to new possibilities, new adventures, and new experiences that you might have missed if you were too busy trying to control everything. Think of it like this. You're on a road trip and you have a detailed itinerary planned out, but then you stumble upon a hidden gem, a charming little town, a breathtaking vista, a quirky roadside attraction. If you're too focused on sticking to your plan, you might miss out on these unexpected delights. So, how do you actually practice letting go of control? Well, it starts with awareness. Pay attention to the situations where you feel the need to micromanage or control the outcome. Are you constantly checking your phone for updates? Are you obsessing over every detail of a project? Are you trying to force your opinions or beliefs on others? Once you've identified these tendencies, it's time to start challenging them. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if I let go of control in this situation? Often, the answer is not as bad as you might think. For example, let's say you're planning a party. You've spent weeks agonizing over every detail, the food, the decorations, the guest list. But then, on the day of the party, it starts to rain. If you're clinging to your vision of a perfect outdoor gathering, you might feel stressed and disappointed. But if you can let go of control and embrace the unexpected, you might find that the rain adds a cozy, intimate vibe to your party. Letting go of control is not about being passive or giving up. It's about recognizing that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's about trusting that life will unfold as it should, even if it doesn't always go according to plan. So, my friend, take a deep breath and release the need to control every little thing. Embrace the uncertainty, the spontaneity, the adventure of life. As the great philosopher Alan Watts once said, "This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now, and instead of calling it work, realize it is play." 5. Unrealistic expectations. Okay, folks, let's talk about expectations. You know, those sneaky little things we carry around in our heads about how life should be, how people should act, and how we should feel. They're like those rose-colored glasses we sometimes wear, making everything seem brighter and better than it actually is. But here's the catch. When reality doesn't match up to our expectations, we end up feeling disappointed, frustrated, and even resentful. It's like ordering a 5-star gourmet meal and getting a greasy burger instead. Sure, the burger might be decent, but it's not what you were expecting, and it leaves you feeling a bit let down. The same thing happens in life when we cling to unrealistic expectations. We set ourselves up for disappointment and miss out on the beauty of what is. Now, I'm not saying you should become a pessimist and expect the worst from everything. There's definitely a place for optimism and hope. But it's important to be realistic about what you can control and what you can't. The Stoics, those wise philosophers we keep coming back to, had a lot to say about expectations. They believed that the key to happiness is accepting what is, rather than clinging to how we think things should be. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about it this way. You can't control the weather, the traffic, or whether your favorite team wins the game. But you can control how you react to those things. You can choose to get upset and frustrated when things don't go your way, or you can choose to accept the situation and move on. Now, I know it's not always easy to let go of expectations. We're often bombarded with messages telling us how we should look, how we should act, and what we should achieve. Social media, advertising, and even well-meaning friends and family can contribute to these unrealistic expectations. But here's the thing. Comparing yourself to others is a recipe for unhappiness. Everyone's journey is different, and what works for one person might not work for another. It's like comparing apples and oranges. They're both fruit, but they're completely different. So, how do you actually lower your expectations and start enjoying life more? Well, it starts with awareness. Pay attention to the situations where you feel yourself getting caught up in expectations. Are you constantly comparing yourself to others? Are you setting unrealistic goals for yourself? Are you expecting perfection from yourself or others? Once you've identified these tendencies, it's time to start challenging them. Ask yourself, are these expectations realistic? Are they helpful? Are they contributing to my happiness or my stress? For example, let's say you're planning a vacation. You've been dreaming of this trip for months, and you have a picture-perfect image in your mind of how it's going to be. But then, things don't go exactly as planned. The weather is bad, the hotel is not as nice as you expected, and you get into an argument with your travel companion. If you're clinging to your unrealistic expectations, you're going to be miserable. But if you can let go of those expectations and embrace the reality of the situation, you might still be able to enjoy your vacation. Maybe you'll discover a hidden gem of a restaurant, have a meaningful conversation with a local, or simply enjoy the opportunity to relax and recharge. Lowering your expectations is not about settling for less or giving up on your dreams. It's about creating a more realistic and balanced perspective on life. It's about appreciating the present moment for what it is, rather than dwelling on what it could or should be. So, my friend, take a deep breath and release those unrealistic expectations. Embrace the imperfections, the surprises, the detours that life throws your way. As the great philosopher Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient. For he that is so wants nothing." The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not. 6. The need to always be right. Ever find yourself in a conversation where you're absolutely convinced you're right, and the other person is just, well, wrong? You know those moments where you're itching to jump in with a correction, a counter-argument, or a, well, actually. It's like you're in a verbal sparring match, and the only way to win is to prove your intellectual superiority. But here's the thing. Constantly needing to be right can be exhausting, not to mention a bit of a buzzkill for those around you. It can turn conversations into battles, relationships into power struggles, and life into a never-ending quest for validation. Now, I'm not saying you should never stand up for your beliefs or express your opinions. It's important to have convictions and to be able to articulate them, but there's a difference between confidently sharing your perspective and needing to dominate every conversation with your rightness. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates was known for his relentless pursuit of truth, but he also understood the importance of humility and open-mindedness. He believed that true wisdom lies in recognizing how much you don't know. As he famously said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." Think about it this way. Every person you meet has their own unique experiences, perspectives, and beliefs. Even if you disagree with someone, there's always something to be learned from their point of view. It's like looking at a painting from different angles. Each perspective offers a different understanding of the artwork. So, how do you let go of this need to always be right? Well, it starts with cultivating a sense of curiosity. Instead of approaching conversations with the goal of proving your point, try to approach them with a genuine desire to understand the other person's perspective. Ask questions, listen actively, and be open to the possibility that you might learn something new. For example, let's say you're having a discussion about politics with a friend who has different views than you. Instead of immediately jumping in with a counter-argument, try asking them questions like, "What led you to that belief?" Or, "Can you help me understand your perspective?" You might be surprised at what you learn, and you might even find some common ground. Another helpful strategy is to practice active listening. This means truly paying attention to what the other person is saying, without interrupting or formulating your response in your head. It's about trying to understand their point of view, even if you don't agree with it. And here's a little secret. Admitting you're wrong can actually be incredibly empowering. It shows that you're open to learning and growing, and it can strengthen your relationships by fostering trust and vulnerability. Think of it this way. Imagine you're on a hike with a group of friends. You're convinced you're on the right path, but then you realize you've been following the wrong trail. Instead of stubbornly insisting that you're right, you admit your mistake and allow the group to redirect you. This not only saves you time and energy, but it also shows your friends that you're willing to be wrong and that you value their input. Letting go of the need to always be right is not about becoming a pushover or abandoning your convictions. It's about cultivating humility, open-mindedness, and a willingness to learn from others. It's about recognizing that truth is often multifaceted and that there's always more to learn. So, my friend, take a deep breath and release the need to be right all the time. Embrace the beauty of diverse perspectives, the joy of learning, and the power of humility. As the great philosopher Voltaire once said, "Doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainty is absurd." 7. Digital noise. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the smartphone in our hands. We live in a world that's constantly buzzing, pinging, and demanding our attention. Social media, news alerts, emails, instant messages. It's like we're plugged into a matrix of digital noise that never sleeps. Now, I'm not here to bash technology. It's an incredible tool that connects us, informs us, and entertains us. But let's be honest, it can also be a major distraction, pulling us away from the present moment and leaving us feeling scattered and unfulfilled. Think about it. How many times have you been out with friends or family, only to find yourself mindlessly scrolling through your phone? Or how about those moments when you're supposed to be relaxing and enjoying your downtime, but you can't resist the urge to check your email or social media just one more time? It's like we're addicted to the constant stimulation, the endless stream of information, the fear of missing out. But here's the thing, all that digital noise can drown out the subtle whispers of our own hearts, the quiet beauty of the world around us, the genuine connections with the people we love. The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus believed that the key to happiness is finding pleasure in simple things, good food, good company, and a peaceful mind. He probably wouldn't have been a big fan of social media, with its constant comparisons, fleeting trends, and manufactured drama. Now, I'm not suggesting you throw your phone in the river and go live in a cave, but I do encourage you to become more mindful of your digital consumption. Ask yourself, is this technology serving me, or am I serving it? For example, if you find yourself mindlessly scrolling through social media for hours on end, try setting limits on how much time you spend on it each day. You can also try using apps that block distracting websites or notifications. Another helpful strategy is to create digital detox periods throughout your day. This could mean putting your phone away during meals, turning off notifications while you're working, or designating certain times of day as tech-free zones. Think of it this way: your attention is a precious resource. Every time you get sucked into the digital vortex, you're taking away from your ability to focus on what truly matters: your relationships, your work, your creativity, your well-being. So what can you do with all that reclaimed time and attention? Well, the possibilities are endless. You could spend more time in nature, connect with loved ones, pursue a hobby, read a book, or simply enjoy the quiet stillness of your own company. The French philosopher Blaise Pascal famously said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." In today's world, that quote might need a slight update. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone without checking his phone. So, my friend, take a deep breath and unplug from the digital noise. Reconnect with the world around you, with the people you love, and with your own inner voice. As the great philosopher Henry David Thoreau once said, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." 8. Negative thoughts. Okay, folks, let's get real for a minute. We all have that inner critic, that voice in our heads that loves to whisper doubts, fears, and insecurities. It's the voice that says, "You're not good enough, you're going to fail," or "What's the point of even trying?" It's like having a negative Nancy living rent-free in your mind, constantly bringing you down and holding you back. Now, I'm not saying you should pretend to be happy all the time or ignore your problems. It's important to acknowledge your emotions and deal with challenges head-on. But constantly dwelling on negative thoughts can be like quicksand, pulling you deeper and deeper into a pit of despair. The ancient Greek philosopher Epictetus had a brilliant insight about this. He said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." In other words, it's not the events themselves that cause us suffering, but our interpretations of those events. Think about it this way. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. You could choose to get angry and frustrated, cursing the other drivers and feeling your blood pressure rise. Or you could choose to accept the situation, put on some music, and use the time to relax or catch up on a podcast. The situation is the same, but your reaction to it makes all the difference. Now, I know it's not always easy to control your thoughts. Our minds are wired to focus on negativity, to scan for threats and dangers. It's a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors avoid predators and stay alive. But in today's world, this negativity bias can often do more harm than good. So, how do you break free from the grip of negative thinking? Well, it starts with awareness. Pay attention to your thoughts throughout the day. Are they mostly positive or negative? Are they focused on the past, the present, or the future? Once you've become more aware of your thought patterns, you can start to challenge them. When a negative thought pops up, ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it helpful? Is it serving me in any way? For example, let's say you're about to give a presentation at work. Your inner critic might start whispering, "You're going to mess this up," or "Everyone's going to think you're an idiot." But instead of letting those thoughts take over, challenge them. Ask yourself, have I prepared for this presentation? Do I know my material? Have I done my best? Another helpful strategy is to practice gratitude. Focusing on the good things in your life can help shift your perspective and cultivate a more positive mindset. You can start a gratitude journal, write thank you notes, or simply take a few moments each day to appreciate the people and things you have in your life. Think of it this way. Your mind is like a garden. If you constantly plant seeds of negativity, you're going to end up with a garden full of weeds. But if you cultivate positive thoughts, you'll create a beautiful and flourishing landscape. Now, I know this is easier said than done. Breaking free from negative thinking takes time, effort, and a whole lot of self-compassion. But it's definitely possible. And the rewards are well worth it. When you learn to control your thoughts, you gain control of your emotions, your actions, and ultimately, your life. So, my friend, take a deep breath and start cultivating a more positive mindset. Challenge those negative thoughts, practice gratitude, and focus on the good. As the great philosopher Viktor Frankl once said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." 9. Physical and mental clutter. All right, folks, let's talk about clutter. Not just the physical kind, the piles of papers on your desk, the overflowing closet, the junk drawer that's bursting at the seams, but also the mental clutter that clogs our minds and weighs us down. Think about it. How often do you feel overwhelmed, stressed, and unable to focus? Chances are, your environment plays a bigger role than you might think. When we're surrounded by physical clutter, it can create a sense of chaos and disarray that seeps into our minds, making it difficult to think clearly and feel at peace. Now, I'm not suggesting you become a minimalist and live in a stark white box with nothing but a mattress and a single plant. But I do encourage you to take a look around your space and ask yourself, does this spark joy? Thanks, Marie Kondo. If the answer is no, it might be time to do some decluttering. Start small. Choose one area, your desk, a closet, a drawer, and start sorting through it. Get rid of anything that's broken, unused, or simply doesn't bring you joy. You can donate it, sell it, or simply toss it in the trash. But physical clutter is only half the battle. We also need to address the mental clutter that accumulates in our minds, the worries, the to-do lists, the unfinished projects, the negative thoughts that swirl around like a tornado. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. He encouraged people to question their beliefs, their habits, and their motivations. So, take some time to examine your own mental clutter. What are the thoughts and worries that are taking up space in your mind? Are they serving you in any way? For example, maybe you're constantly replaying a conversation in your head, agonizing over what you should have said or done differently. Or perhaps you're worrying about a future event that you have no control over. These thoughts can be like mental cobwebs, trapping you in a cycle of negativity and anxiety. So, how do you declutter your mind? Well, there are a few different strategies you can try. One is mindfulness meditation. This involves focusing on the present moment without judgment and observing your thoughts and feelings as they arise. Another helpful technique is journaling. Writing down your thoughts and worries can help you get them out of your head and gain a new perspective on them. You can also try talking to a trusted friend, family member, or therapist. Think of it this way: your mind is like a computer. If you have too many programs running at once, it's going to slow down and eventually crash. Decluttering your mind is like closing unnecessary programs and freeing up space for the things that truly matter. Now, I know this is easier said than done. Decluttering, both physically and mentally, takes time, effort, and a willingness to let go. But it's definitely worth it. When you create a space that is clean, organized, and free of clutter, you create a space for peace, clarity, and creativity to flourish. So, my friend, take a deep breath and start decluttering. Clear out the physical clutter in your space and the mental clutter in your mind. As the great philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." 10. Unnecessary comparisons. All right, folks, let's talk about comparison, that sneaky little thief of joy that loves to whisper in our ears. You're not as good as. You should be further along by now. Or, why can't you be more like? It's like we're constantly measuring ourselves against others, using their achievements, possessions, and lifestyles as a yardstick for our own worth. But here's the thing: comparison is a losing game. There will always be someone who is smarter, richer, more successful, or seemingly happier than you. And when we focus on those comparisons, we end up feeling inadequate, envious, and discouraged. The ancient Greek philosopher Epictetus had a wise perspective on this. He said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In other words, true contentment comes from appreciating what we have, rather than constantly yearning for what we lack. Think about it this way. Imagine you're at a party, and everyone seems to be having a blast. You start comparing yourself to others, thinking, "I'm not as outgoing as her," or "I don't have as many friends as him." But what you don't see is that everyone at that party has their own insecurities, their own struggles, their own battles they're fighting. Now, I'm not saying you should never admire or learn from others. It's great to be inspired by people who are doing amazing things. But there's a difference between healthy admiration and destructive comparison. So, how do you break free from the comparison trap? Well, it starts with awareness. Pay attention to the situations where you find yourself comparing yourself to others. Is it when you're scrolling through social media? Is it when you're talking to a friend about their accomplishments? Is it when you're feeling insecure or vulnerable? Once you've identified these triggers, it's time to start challenging them. Ask yourself, is this comparison helpful? Is it motivating me to improve? Or is it just making me feel bad about myself? For example, let's say you see a friend posting pictures of their amazing vacation on social media. You might start feeling envious, thinking, I wish I could afford to travel like that. But instead of getting caught up in comparison, try reframing your thoughts. You could think, that's awesome that they're having such a great time. I'm happy for them, and I'm excited to plan my own adventure when the time is right. Another helpful strategy is to focus on your own journey. Everyone has their own unique path, their own strengths, their own challenges. Comparing yourself to others is like comparing apples and oranges. They're both fruit, but they're completely different. Think of it this way. Imagine you're running a race. Instead of looking around at the other runners and comparing your pace to theirs, focus on your own lane. Keep your eyes on the finish line and run your own race. Now, I know this is easier said than done. We live in a world that constantly bombards us with images of perfect lives, perfect bodies, and perfect relationships. It's easy to get caught up in the comparison game, but it's important to remember that those images are often carefully curated and don't reflect the full reality. So, my friend, take a deep breath and release those unnecessary comparisons. Focus on your own journey, your own strengths, your own progress. Celebrate your achievements, no matter how small they may seem. And remember, as the great philosopher Theodore Roosevelt once said, comparison is the thief of joy. And there you have it, folks. 10 things you can quietly remove from your life to create space for more peace, joy, and authenticity. It's not always easy to let go of old habits, beliefs, and relationships, but trust me, it's worth it. Remember, you are the author of your own story. You have the power to choose what you keep and what you let go of. So, take a deep breath, embrace the journey, and create a life that truly reflects your values and aspirations. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends,